Good evening, everyone. Thanks for coming. It is 6:00 p.m. and I now call to order this Crete Public Schools Board of Education meeting. This is the December 19th public hearing on American civics. Notice of this meeting has been advertised in the Crete newspaper, which is the district's designated method of giving notice of these meetings. We want those in attendance to know that copies of the Open Meetings Act are available at the entrance to the boardroom. If anyone in attendance is interested in addressing our board, you are welcome to do so. We simply request that you complete the appropriate form and turn it into us now so that you may be recognized during the public forum part of our meeting. These forms are also located by the entry doors of this room. Ms. Banyos, will you please call the roll?
Greg Holman reported an absence. Julie Kozachek? Here. Justin Kuntz?
Yes.
Bill Lorenz? Here. Greg Mock? Yes. Scott Peeney?
Yes. I find that we have a quorum present, which will move now to item number 3, which is the reading of the mission statement by Dr. McDowell.
The mission of Crete Public Schools, a diverse community of engaged individuals committed to the success of all, is to ensure learners have the character, knowledge, and skills to be respectful and productive members of a global society. Crete Public Schools will cultivate a culture where all are challenged, empowered, and supported to reach their maximum potential.
Thank you, Dr. McDowell. This brings us to item 4, which is the instructional plan on American civics for Crete High School, and Mr. Stecker and high school social science teachers will present their instructional and assessment plan in order to comply with Nebraska Statute 79-724. Mr. Stecker.
Good evening, everyone. In 2019, LB 399 was signed into law. It's commonly referred to as the Americanism Law. Our purpose here tonight for this meeting is twofold. Number one, to inform you of how we are complying with LB 399, and number two, to exercise a component of our compliance that we need to take care of. Part of the stipulation of the law is that 2 times a year, a committee on Americanism must meet. One of those times, they must also have open to public testimony. Our, our Committee for Teaching and Learning serves as our Americanism Committee. They meet monthly, so we are in excess of meeting that requirement. Once I conclude the presentation tonight, the board may open the microphone to public testimony. That way we can also meet compliance with that second component. Since the 2020-2021 school year, the Social Studies Department at Crete High School has fulfilled the Americanism requirement in U.S. government class by virtually attending a city council meeting and having students complete a reflection paper about what they learned and their experiences. There are 3 components our students have to select one of to complete. Number 1, they can take the citizenship test. Number 3, they can complete a project or paper. Our social studies team is elected to go with the second option, the middle one, and that is attendance at a meeting and then to do a reflection on what they have learned from that meeting. The law states that attendance or participation between the commencement of 8th grade and completion of 12th grade in a meeting of a public body as defined by section 84-1409, followed by the completion of a project or paper in which each student demonstrates or discusses the personal learning experience of such student related to such attendance and participation. We take care of this in our U.S. government class, which is taught by Mr. Quinn to our freshmen. This activity does meet the requirements of the state statute. Following the pandemic, the city of Crete has agreed to record a city council meeting and provide a link to Crete Public Schools. This allows our students to watch that meeting during class time and then engage in the reflection paper. The rationales that our social science department have: local government is typically the level of government that most directly affects students as citizens. Our department wants to ensure our students understand how it functions, where its decisions are made, how they can address a local issue, and where they can go to learn more information. Few students have the opportunity to see local government in action unless we create that opportunity for them and may not understand the process. This activity gives them a real-life perspective of how the meeting is structured, the types of issues our local government addresses, and how how the city council members make decisions. So we are absolutely in compliance. We have been doing a good job with that. This plan has been implemented, like I said, since we returned from the pandemic. We are continuing to implement it. We appreciate the city council and the collaboration they have with us in order to make this happen. And we have entered into a world where we do attend things remotely more often. And so this also provides an opportunity where Mr. Quinn can pause and talk about what's happening in the meeting in real time, rather than trying to address the questions later after there's been some distance from it. With that, I'd be glad to answer any questions that the board members may have about our compliance with LB 399.
Thank you, Mr. Stecker. We'll move on to item 5 for this meeting, which is the public forum. Each individual addressing the board will be allowed 5 minutes. The Board of Education has the prerogative to limit speaking to 3 minutes when there are 3 or more patrons, to allow all speakers an opportunity to address the board in a timely manner. We will not engage in dialogue with patrons presenting to the board. The board president and superintendent will identify staff to follow up on the information requested from the patrons. The board president may share a statement on behalf of the board when addressing a major issue in the district. Is there anyone who would like to speak as part of our public forum portion of the American Civics public hearing? Hearing no one, I would entertain a motion to adjourn the public hearing on American Civics at 6:06 p.m.
So moved.
Motion by Julie, a second by Scott. Roll call.
Koscheck.
Yes.
Kutz.
Yes.
Lorenz. Mock. Peeney.
Motion carries. We are adjourned with that meeting. It is 6:06 p.m. and I now call to order the Crete Public Schools Board of Education meeting. This is the December 2022 regular meeting. Notice of this meeting has been advertised in the Crete newspaper, which is the district's designated method of giving notice of these meetings. We want those in attendance to know that copies of the Open Meetings Act are available at the entrance to the boardroom. If anyone in attendance is interested in addressing our board, you are welcome to do so. We simply request that you complete the appropriate form and turn it in to us now, so that you may be recognized during the public forum part of the meeting. These forms are also located by the entry doors of this room. Ms. Banyos, would you please call the roll?
Greg Holman reported an absence. Julie Kozacek.
Yes.
Justin Kuntz.
Yes.
Bill Lorenz. Greg Mock. Scott Peeney.
Finding we have a quorum present, we will move on to item 3, which is the public forum section of our regular board meeting. All of the same rules that I read previously would also apply to this meeting. Is there anyone here that would like to address the board during the public forum of our regular board meeting? Hearing no one, we will move on to item 4, which is the board meeting agenda. This is the agenda as published. Would anyone like to remove any items or add any items to the agenda? If not, I would entertain a motion to approve the meeting agenda as submitted.
So moved.
A motion by Julie. Is there a second? Second by Scott. Roll call.
Kozacek.
Yes.
Kuntz.
Yes.
Lorenz. Mock. Peeney.
Meeting stands as published. The first item on the agenda tonight is the consent agenda. The consent agenda to be approved is as follows: minutes from the previous month's meeting, claims as submitted, bid proposals as submitted, staff adjustments as submitted, and the treasurer's report as submitted. This is the consent agenda as published. Would anyone like to remove any items or add any items to the consent agenda? And does any board member have a potential conflict of interest?
I do. Out of abundance of caution, I abstain from voting to approve check number 143812 to avoid an actual or perceived conflict of interest. I'll vote to approve the balance of the consent agenda.
Thank you, Scott. With that, I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as published.
So moved.
A motion by Julie. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Scott. Dr. McDowell, anything additional in regard to the consent agenda?
No, sir. Finance Facilities did review all of the claims, and no additional questions came out of those.
Board, any questions regarding claims or any items on the consent agenda? Hearing none, roll call.
Kozaczek? Yes. Kuntz?
Yes.
Lorenz?
Yes.
Mock? Feeny?
Yes.
Consent agenda is approved as published. Brings us to item 6, which is the committee reports. First up is the Finance, Facilities, and Transportation Committee.
I actually have that one this evening in Mr. Holman's absence. The Finance and Facilities and Transportation Committee met on Thursday, December 15th at 5:30 p.m. In attendance was Greg Holman, Bill Arenz, Greg Mock, myself, Mrs. Beck, and Mrs. Kirschner. The committee discussed vehicle bids for a new heavy-duty 2500 series truck and also a 12-passenger van. The van had been approved over 2 years ago. We were just unable to secure it at that time, and since then, Sid Dillon has been able to get it for us. The committee agreed that we should move forward with both vehicles. The committee reviewed the bids for a snow blade that would attach to the front of the new truck. Our team currently takes care of all snow removal at the Cardinal Welcome Center and the elementary school. The committee agreed to move forward with that blade. I presented current bids that we've received so far for practice fields at the high school. The committee reviewed and discussed those bids. We are still waiting on a few to move forward. We are also hung up with a couple permit issues right now in order to move that project forward. All claims were reviewed by the committee. The next meeting will be Thursday, January 5th at 5:30 p.m.
Thank you, Dr. McDowell. Next up is American Civics, Teaching and Learning, and I believe Scott has those.
Yep. Teaching and Learning Committee meeting was held at 4 p.m. on December 15th in the CPS Administration Building. Members present, Dr. McDowell, Mr. Stecker, Dr. Franz, Mr. Kuntz, Dr. Kozaczek, Mrs. Harrifield, and myself. The committee celebrated the national award received by Crete Intermediate School from the ESEA Network for Excellence in Serving Special Populations of Students. Dr. McDowell shared the process for the staffing plan, the positions requested, and the recommendation for positions to be filled, along with the funding mechanisms to support such positions. Mrs. Harrifield shared progress on the transition to the academy model at Crete High School. This included the proposed academies, pathways within the academies, a profile of a graduate, and the process of adjusting teaching assignments to meet the needs of instruction within the academy. Mr. Stecker shared progress on the science resource and ELA resource adoption process. Our instructional staff has had the opportunity to have a hands-on examination of the resource samples and implement them in their instruction. Mr. Stecker will be collecting input from the teachers regarding their experience with the sample resources. Our next step will be to select our top choices, listen to vendor presentations, and evaluate the resources with a rubric in order to make a recommendation to the board in the February meeting. Mr. Stecker shared a proposal for the 23-24 school calendar. At the request of principals, the dates for parent-teacher conferences have been moved to later in the fall and spring semesters. The committee discussed the position of the winter break, but concluded the next step should be to collect feedback from teachers. Mr. Stecker will do so. Dr. McDowell shared the Christmas card created by a CPS student, which will be sent to local businesses. The next meeting will be on January 4th at 4 p.m. in the Cardinal Welcome Center.
Thank you, Scott. Next up is Personnel, and I believe Julie has those.
Personnel Committee met on Monday, December 12th at 12 o'clock. In attendance were Julie Kozaczek, Greg Holman, Dr. McDowell, and Mrs. Beck. Dr. McDowell shared the staffing proposals that were brought to the board. He explained the format, timeline, requirements placed on the district by NDE, and the budget for the staffing request. Dr. McDowell shared the idea of a remote workday on December 21st for teachers. The committee agreed and felt that the teachers would appreciate this. The committee was informed of the tentative date set for the next staff appreciation event. To incorporate staff feedback from the first event held, the second one will begin at the end of the professional development day and be held from 3 to 5 in the afternoon in the high school commons. The committee discussed the possibility of classified positions working 20 hours per week to earn leave. This allows for consistency with other benefits earned for positions working 20 hours per week. Leave, insurance, and retirement will all be earned for positions scheduled to work 20 hours per week. November substitute data, staffing updates, and current positions posted were shared with the committee. The committee was informed of the process and the amount of time it takes to correct information in the time management system when hourly staff miss a punch to clock in or out. A solution was proposed to the committee on possible pay deductions based on the excessive amounts of missing punches or corrections submitted per month. This will continue to be reviewed with the administrators as they will be involved in assisting with the missed punch or correction. Classified staff will be notified when finalized. Dr. McDowell updated the committee with the most recent negotiated agreement status. The next personnel committee meeting will be held Monday, January 9th at 12 o'clock.
Thank you, Julie. That concludes the committee minutes. So we will move to item 7, which is our information and discussion items. Item 7A is campus highlights, and tonight we have the middle school.
And academics and activities. And there's just a lot of positive things going on, and I'm proud to be a part of this community.
So we have 8th grade students here that are going to share their descriptive writing essays with you. Mr. Bowman could not be here with us today, but he does a really great job at explicitly teaching the writing process to students. So here you'll see an example of some of the graphic organizers that he uses to guide students through this process. So he provides example paragraphs and then the criteria required for each piece of their essays. So he structures his lessons in a mini lesson format. So the students here got a review of figurative language, and then with each piece of the writing process, they're asked to apply those conferences with each student individually multiple times through this process. The pieces that you're going to hear tonight are descriptions of scenes and the use of a variety of figurative language, and Izzy Myers is going to be the first one to read to you today.
Hi, I'm Izzy Myers, and this is my descriptive essay. Swoosh, slop. The sound of the flowing river is the only thing you will hear at Santa Glacier National Park. Santa Glacier National Park is a place of peace and elegance. The sky is bright in the early morning. It is as vibrantly blue as the Mediterranean Sea. It is a ribbon coiling around everything it touches. The sky is becoming faded like a shirt left in the sun for too long. It sits still but secretly dances underneath the mountains. The mountains stand proud when they lean over the water. Their tips are keen like ancient knives. The rocks are scattered and smooth. They are unique like the stars in the sky. They are tattered pearls that have been washed ashore again and again. The water is brilliant and sparkling, but cold as well. It is murky like a mysterious forest. It is an eel snaking through the ground. The ice is white like milk and disfigured. They are small boats drifting wherever the current takes them. You won't be able to find any place more peaceful and elegant than Santa Glacier National Park. The bold mountains, soft sky, special rocks, reflective water, and sharp ice are truly magical.
Hello, I'm Sarah E. Silveira, and this is my descriptive essay. Squawk, squawk. Mono Lake, California is where you hear the sound of seagulls squawking to one another on the rocks down below. Mono Lake, California is there for you when you want to feel free and breathe clearly with the crisp, cool air. The water here flips around, laughing freely with no care at all. The gradient of aqua to sea green makes the water even more gorgeous than before. It crashes into the rocks and sputters like a car engine. It feels prickly like multiple tiny needles tickling your skin ever so slightly. It splashes as if it were a toddler in the bath with the cool water against its skin, feeling so refreshing. It is a dog chasing after a ball and bringing it back over and over. The rocks are wet like the outside of a glass of water. They look like jutting teeth that need braces desperately. They are jagged, rough, and can be very dangerous if not careful. The lighthouse is very lonely on the hilltop all by itself. It contrasts so well against the sky. Smooth like painted over bricks, it is the calm in the storm, the one thing seeming so solid and significant. The clouds are as soft as a pillow. As they float around cheerfully, they are wispy like the strokes of a paintbrush. It giggles, acting carefree because of their simple lifestyle, just being there. They are transparent and beautiful, able to keep someone's attention for hours. They glide along the sky, moving slowly and gracefully, dancing to soft music, and is a warm bed after a never-ending day. If you want to feel free and breathe clearly, then Mono Lake, California is where to go. The breathtaking attributes of this place, which include the wispy clouds, solid lighthouse, seafoam green water, and the jagged rocks, are what make this place so significant.
Hi, I'm Brooks Peening. This is my descriptive essay writing. Trickle, trickle, that is the sound the water makes at Grand Teton National Park. Grand Teton National Park is lovely and gorgeous. The sky is the color of light blue and yellow from the sun. It is a trailer of what there really is. The mountains are yellow like the outer edge of a pencil and powdered like a funnel cake. It is a challenge for any passerby, making them want to overtake it. The mountain blocks the sun, causing shadows over many things. The grass is spiky, soft, and cool. It is reaching out for water and for sunshine. It is as green as the skin of the frog. The trees are houses and protectors. Their branches are arms. They are reaching out to get sunshine and a nice breeze. The water is clear and a little blue. It is a past reflection of your brain thinking about the past. The water is a map marking the way to a civilization. It is a mirror. The water is calm and flowing nicely along the shore. If you like seeing lovely and gorgeous things, Grand Teton National Park is the place for you. The light blue sky, the staggering mountains, and the spiky grass, and the wrinkled trees is a place you would love to see.
Thank you all for sharing your essays. Very, very talented work. It's never easy getting up in front of a room and sharing something that you've written, so thank you for doing that. Next up is item 7B, the CPS McKinney-Vento program. Mrs. Schacht will provide an overview of the CPS McKinney-Vento program.
Hello. I'm Marilyn Schacht, and I'm the McKinney-Vento Homeless Liaison for Crete Public Schools. Go ahead. So in Crete, at Crete's Public Schools, we've had our McKinney-Vento program. We started keeping track of data back in 18-19. That's about the first year where we started keeping track of our data of our homeless student numbers. That first year, we had about, I think, like 150 students identified. Then you'll see that in 1920, that school year, it kind of stayed about the same. 2021, our numbers dropped. And then the following year, 21-22, it also stayed about the same. Since my hire this year, I've been able to focus on identifying students, and we are currently have, which would be 6 Pence families, then preschool families, and so K through 12. We currently have 255 students identified as McKinney-Vento homeless eligible. Go ahead, go to the next one. Yeah. So currently at Crete Public Schools, I've identified 12 6 Pence students, 62 students at the elementary school, 48 at the intermediate, 47 at the middle school, and 86 McKinney-Vento homeless students at the Crete High School. Many of these students live in the current situations. Some families live in garages, hotels, cars. Some students couch surf. Many families are doubled up, live in substandard situations and unstable housing situations. And many students are unaccompanied youth, meaning that they are in the country without their guardians. Many of our students, when you think about homelessness, here in Cree, it's kind of out of sight, out of mind. We don't have homeless shelters, so I will go into kind of how students are eligible for McKinney-Vento and what qualifies a student for the McKinney-Vento Homeless Act. So McKinney-Vento Act is a federal law that seeks to ensure the enrollment, attendance, and success of homeless children and youth in school. It ensures that children and youth experiencing homelessness have immediate and equal access to public education. So that means that if there's a student that is coming to enroll and they're lacking those documents needed for enrollment, such as birth certificate, immunization records, proof of address, those documents are not required for those students. I go through like a vetting process, identifying them and making sure that they are McKinney-Vento eligible, and we try to get them enrolled in school immediately. I also help those families then get their like birth certificate. I coordinate immunization appointments. A lot of the students that are coming into the state of Nebraska from other countries or other states, the state of Nebraska requires those physicals. So I would help coordinate those physicals for those students and help remove those barriers so that they do have that enrollment immediately. This McKinney-Vento law is intended to provide some relief to the many challenges that our children that face this homelessness. Like I said, just remove those barriers to education. So McKinney-Vento students are eligible if they lack fixed, regular, and adequate nighttime residence. Due to economic hardships, if they are doubled up, so if they are living with other families. Many of the students, it's sometimes 2 to 4 families living in a household due to that financial hardship. Like I mentioned previously, many of the students have unstable housing situations, so if they're new to the country, maybe they initially come and live with a cousin, and then they live with an aunt, and then they go back to live with a cousin, just kind of wherever there is a roof for them. Some of our students have lived in hotels, motels, cars, because we lack homeless shelters. At the high school, you saw a number there was about 86 McKinney-Vento students, and many of those students are unaccompanied youth, so they are in the country not in the custody of their legal guardians. Then a lot of the families I see live in an inadequate housing, substandard situation where there's like mold, they lack heat, electricity, plumbing. As an example, I have a family who was living in a 2-bedroom home, and we had 22 people living in that home. And they were eligible through inadequate and substandard living situations. There have been some students in the past that were living in the shelter, so city mission, and the McKinney-Vento law also states that the students have to be able to stay in their school of origin. So if Crete is their school of origin, but they have to live in the shelter because that is the only place for them to go, we have to pay for that transportation to go pick up the students and bring them back to Crete. Okay, thank you. So how is Crete Public Schools serving students? Currently, just trying to meet some of their basic needs. So removing any barrier to enrollment, but also some of our students don't have the transportation, so walking to school, some walk from, I have a family that walks kind of from like West Casey's to the high school because they don't have transportation, so making sure that they have the appropriate clothing, that they have coats, that they have all the winter gear to be able to walk from their home to the schools. So we receive a lot of donations from the community. Also then, the next one would be food. McKinney-Vento students are automatically eligible for free and reduced lunch. We've also partnered with some other organizations. So one of them would be the backpack program. I have shared my McKinney-Vento list with some of the district administrators so that they would be able to add those kiddos to the backpack list. Since I took this job, I've been trying to make more partnerships and collaborations with other organizations. So sending the families, if they need a referral to a food bank. School supplies, also we receive a lot of donations, but with the McKinney-Vento grant, we've been able to purchase school supplies to make sure that that's not a barrier for students at the time of enrollment. I provide them with a backpack, any school supplies. If there's any program costs, if they want to participate in a sport and are not able to because maybe they're not able to purchase like the cleats needed or something, the McKinney-Vento grant would help pay for some of those fees. Healthcare, we just have very limited referrals here in the community. Many of the McKinney-Vento students are not eligible for social services. Programs that we have that can support the families is our McKinney-Vento program, our Sixpence program, migrant education, adult education, and family literacy. We share a lot of our families, and so we really work together to try and support these families. Lastly, these are some of the barriers that the students and families have shared that they really struggle with. I would say like probably the top one is a lack of transportation, which has caused a lot of problems with attendance. Housing, affordable housing in Crete and just the lack of housing. So that's why financial hardship and the lack of housing has led to many of the families living doubled up, like I said, 3 or 4 families living together. Poor hygiene, just not being able to afford some of those basic needs. And like I previously mentioned, a lot of these students are not eligible for social services, and we really lack resources in Crete. Many students will tell me that they can't afford dental care, that they're sitting in a classroom with dental pain, and just trying to find those resources for those students. Connecting them to those resources has been very difficult. Many of our students can't afford vision care, don't have like vision care insurance, and again, just connecting them to those resources, not having much available here in Crete. Can't afford health care. Those are some of the barriers that the students and families have shared with me. As I took this role, I have really focused on trying to find partnerships and collaborations with organizations to help remove barriers for students and just find resources to connect the students with. Thank you.
Yeah, go ahead, Bill.
Well, how is the success rate? Are you able to find people?
Am I-
With the open border, we're gonna have more of them coming, so are you prepared for that also?
We do not ask the students what their legal status is. I'm guessing that's kind of what your question might be. I am not sure what the legal status is of the students.
Well, I see houses around town that have 10 vehicles inside them, so you know there's more than one family there. So I just wonder how it's working.
Yeah, all I know is what the students shared with me with if they're struggling, some of the things that I mentioned, but I can't really answer that question.
You talked a little bit about students not being eligible for social services. What are the boundaries there that would make them not eligible for services?
That is not always shared with me when I refer them to any services. Sometimes they will come back and tell me that they were not eligible for those services. So really, my job is connecting them to those resources and, like I said, referring them there. And then a lot of times they'll come back and say, we did not qualify for that, or we're just not able to. And I don't always know the reason. So. Correct, yep, yes, so try to find, so like, one of the places that I send the students to is Clinic with a Heart in Lincoln, which I know that most families are able to go there and receive the services that they need. I don't really think much is asked there. Yeah.
Any other questions, board? Thank you for presenting.
Yeah, thank you.
Next up is item 7C. We have an out-of-state request from the Grassroots Leadership Development Program, the USHLI Conference. The GLDP group is requesting an out-of-state trip to that annual conference in Chicago, Illinois. The dates requested are February 15th through the 17th, 2023, and you should have a letter attached in your materials board. Hello.
Hi, good evening. I am Irangi Rodriguez, and I'm speaking on behalf of the Grassroots Leadership Development Program in the high school. For years, Grassroots has been an organization in the high school that promotes and facilitates constructive dialogue and interactions between Hispanic citizens and public officials who are responsible for administrating their local city, county, and school government. Through these conversations, we hope to gain a better understanding about how local governments function and how, as citizens, we can play a more effective role in influencing and formulating public policy. To better promote these interactions, Grassroots is requesting permission to attend the United States Hispanic Leadership Institute in Chicago, Illinois, from February 16th through the 19th. The mission of this conference is to train and grow the section of Hispanic leaders in the world through education, unity, leadership development, and servant leadership. Throughout the semester, we have met and have continued to meet with elected and appointed officials and leaders to gain a larger understanding of leadership positions and opportunities in our city, school, and county. This will be the program's 7th trip, and through communication with previous members and the previous sponsor, Mr. Beltran, the understanding is that the experience throughout the entire conference was second to none. So we hope to repeat that this year with your permission.
Any questions, board?
How many go to it?
So there's over 40 states that attend, which would be about 1,000 groups and organizations in total. And from our school, 13 students would be attending, and then our 2 sponsors would be taking us.
Any other questions? Thank you. Thank you for the information and for presenting.
Thank you.
All right, that takes us to item 7D, which is the 2023-2024 CPS staffing plan. Dr. McDowell will present the staffing plan and staffing requests for the upcoming school year.
All right, thank you. I'm going to stand up here so just a little better view. So we've been through this. This will be our 4th time together. Each year we continue to refine the process to really get down to what I would say would be the finite details of why we're requesting additional staff. So as we continue to refine that process, just thanks to Mrs. Beck and her eyes on this, she's really made it an efficient process. Principals will tell you it's long and lengthy, but we also want to be very thorough in that we're not coming to you with frivolous requests, that we're getting it down to what we really need. So a couple of things that we look at, what is enrollment doing? We've talked about it before, but from this point, this day and time, a year ago, we're up about 180 kids, so we know that enrollment continues to grow. We ask principals to identify what it truly is the unmet need. What data do they have to support that request? Is it class size? Is it academic achievement? What is that piece of data that they're relying on for that? Something new that's this year is what's the alternative? We ask them to identify and share that with us. What's the alternative to an additional staff member? So if this doesn't, if you don't get what you're asking for, what's the plan? We ask them to consider all possible solutions within the district. Is there a possible reassignment? Can we move somebody here? Can we have somebody teach something different? And then what has been tried? Have we done something before we're just jumping to conclusions saying we need more people? And then another new thing this year is we asked them to identify how you're measuring the success of the additional person. So if we're adding a person, how are we going to know that that was a successful addition to what we're trying to accomplish at Crete Public Schools? So with that, this year, there were 25 3/4 additional FTEs requested. So when I say that, 25 3/4 FTEs, that includes certified and classified. So that would have been everybody. So certificated employees, teachers, school psychologists, you name it, to paraprofessionals, kitchen staff, custodians. It ran the gamut, 25.75. We have numbers that we use for the average cost of an employee. If we were to hire all of those, that cost would have been $1,234,500. While you have an audit in front of you that says we are financially stable, we're in a good position, we don't have $1 million extra to spend on staff. So we have to go to work on then prioritizing what is that really, first, what do we have to spend on additional staff, and how are we going to go about prioritizing it? So we identified that number this year to be, we feel comfortable spending an additional $385,000 on staff. Now, let me be very clear here, that is out of the general fund. We have different buckets of money that we can spend on different things. So for example, Marilyn presented to you right before me, her salary comes directly out of the McKinney-Vento program that says you have to have this person. So that does not impact the general fund, that is a grant-funded position. So when I'm talking about these and a couple others that I'll present, this is just a direct impact to our general fund dollars. One thing that I did not add there, we know that between insurance costs, retirement costs, the average cost of a certificated teacher in Crete Public Schools is $73,000. So when we put those numbers together, that's how we get to this. Now, we know that not everyone, depending on when we hire them, what experience are they bringing? Some might be less than that, but there are certainly some that might be more than that because we don't cap experience currently in the district. So that's how we get to that. We have that same number, not that same number, but a similar formula for figuring out what is the average paraeducator cost us, what's the average custodian cost us, and so we base these numbers all on the averages. So here are the actual requests. Now again, there were 25.75 total requests. This is what we're actually asking for and the fund that it would come out of. So at the elementary, we're asking for an additional early intervention teacher, so that's birth to 3. The current EI teachers are at their max caseload. In fact, to the point where we're contracting a lot of that service through the ESU 6 to pick up the additional. So with the additional EI teacher, we would stop contracting those services with the ESU, and then we would have our own. That does not come out of the general fund. That would come out of IDEA funds or special education funds. The elementary is also asking for an additional first grade teacher. That does come out of the general fund. The elementary administrators are working on how can this first grade teacher also support EL learners, as you heard from them in their campus highlights a couple of months ago, the increased number of EL learners. And I will tell you, I think they have an innovative, fantastic plan for that. That if we can, not if, when we get the right person to fill that position, I feel like we will have a different approach to EL, kindergarten, first and second grade. So I'm excited for that. The high school, what's interesting now, again, our enrollment is growing, and as enrollment grows, there are certain stipulations that are required for staffing that are beyond our control. So the first one up there is to add a full-time media specialist. Rule 10, which is the rule that governs everything we do, requires that once a secondary building, so our middle school or high school, hits an enrollment of 700, you have to have a full-time media specialist. That's out of our control. We will hit that number next year. So currently, right now, we have 2 media specialists in the district. They're both split. So Dee Dee Moore is at the elementary and the intermediate school, and Lindsay Schlode is at the middle school and high school. So we would move to a full-time at the middle school and high school with that. The other one that's up there that does impact the general fund, I will go on record saying it is an unfunded mandate. The legislative session 2 sessions ago required that financial literacy become a graduation requirement, and so therefore we have to ensure that every high school student has a financial literacy class. So we have to add that position for that to happen. Also, there is another unfunded mandate that you will see next year right behind it, where the legislature made computer science a graduation requirement as well. So I am thankful that I have a great relationship with Senator Brandt, our local senator. He supported our position on both of those bills, but unfortunately that didn't happen. So you'll see that one next year. But anyway, so those two are actually one required by Rule 10, being that we're going to hit 700, and the other one being a legislative bill that passed. Also, they are asking for an additional EL paraeducator, which would come out of Title III funds, which is not the general fund, but is directly for EL instruction. So that does not impact the general fund. And then I will say down there, there's, I didn't know how to categorize it other than miscellaneous. So one, I always add a contingency FTE. So that would be if we have just a huge influx of kids at a particular grade level, that we would have the ability to move and hire an additional teacher. I've had that position on there every year for the last 3 years. We've never had to use the contingency. But I want you to know that that is in the calculation for the number that you'll see here in a minute. We do want to add, man, I forgot, I left that off there, 1.0 certified nursing assistant. So right now, with our special education population, which includes life skills, severe and profound between, there's just we're asking a lot of our nursing staff, which is requiring a large amount of overtime, that we believe we can eliminate that by adding a certified nursing assistant, a CNA. And we would pay for that the first year out of ESSER dollars, and then after that, that would become Medicaid reimbursable, that position. So again, and also with eliminating overtime, so there would be no impact on the general fund there. Setting aside, asking for 2 additional special education paraeducators that could be assigned anywhere in the district. I say set aside, we've had 2 open special education paraeducator positions since September that we've been unable to fill. So by asking for 2 more while we need them, quite honestly, I don't know that we can fill them. And then lastly, an additional $50,000 for the extra standard agreement for positions there, which would be additional coaching staff, additional an additional club like Skills USA at the high school, and then just being able to pivot and move as our activities grow in numbers, the ability to add assistant coaches where necessary there. So those are the actual requests. So when we think about going from 25.75, if you add those up, we're at 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 positions, one of them being a contingency. So, you know, we did our best to really be intentional and whittle that down. So what do those total dollars come to? The general fund requests actually come to $398,000, which would be 4 FTEs, plus those extra standard additions. Now, again, I will tell you in that $398,000, $73,000 of that is the contingency. I don't want to use it, haven't used it in 3 years, would prefer not to again. 1 IDEA request, 1 Title III request, and 1 ESSER III/Medicaid reimbursable request. So we can get to that goal of $385,000 far less than the $1.3 million, and believe that this would be the best plan moving forward for the 23-24 school year. Altogether, though, when you add up general fund dollars, Title III dollars, ESSER dollars, Medicaid, total additions would be $540,000. And with that, I'll conclude that presentation. This is information tonight. This has been through personnel and teaching and learning, but it would be an action item next month.
Any questions on that, board? Thank you, Dr. McDowell. We'll now move on to item 7E, which is the superintendent's report.
I'm going to start. Now, the intermediate school didn't know I was going to do this, and they did inform me that they wouldn't be here this evening. But you've heard a couple just mentions. I know it's been public. It'll be in the newspaper next week. But our intermediate school will be recognized by the Federal Department of Education, the Elementary and Secondary Education Act, Title I schools as a national distinguished school for their work in closing the achievement gap and reducing chronic absenteeism in special populations. So just want to share the video that we had to have made, and will be shared in Indianapolis at that national conference in February. All right, so Crete Intermediate School is the 10th school in the state of Nebraska to be recognized with that award. We are the first school in the state of Nebraska to be recognized for serving special populations. So it's not something that we can submit. We have to be recognized by the state, by the Nebraska Department of Education, after their review of our data, and then they make the submission to the federal government for that selection. So it's an honor. I'm proud of that entire staff, of Lisa and Shannon's leadership. And what I shared at their first kind of recognition with the whole staff is, you know, somebody once told me the hardest thing about being successful is you have to keep on being successful, and I have no doubt that that building will continue to do that. And we will do formal recognition. We're waiting on, we're supposed to be getting more stuff from ESEA so that we can do that in a much more formal manner. Moving on, at each of your places you have the holiday card that was sent out to, we sent it to about 80 different businesses in town. We just used the chamber list. Special thanks to Derek Spence, who went along with my crazy idea. I went to him and I said, I'd love to have a kid design our card. And so he worked with all 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders. Every single kid designed a card. This happened to be a Stephanie Ramirez. She's a 5th grader at Crete Intermediate. So they all submitted a drawing for what that card could be. Mr. Spence narrowed it down to 25. We then narrowed it down to 5 here, and then we opened it up for a vote in this building, and this was the winner. So that went out this week, so those, hopefully you start seeing those around town. We are, not to belabor this at all, or not that we're not all aware, but we're lucky with the timing of our break. We are keeping a close eye on the weather that still impacts people and activities that are happening right now. Anytime the weather gets bad, the National Weather Service hosts weather briefings just specifically for superintendents. Sat in on one today at 3 o'clock. There'll be another one at 2. 40 to 50 below with 50-mile-an-hour winds. Expect power outages. We've already started to shuffle some activities, but a change that we are going to do, this building was closed Friday and Monday. We're going to close this building on Thursday as well. We've offered a couple of different opportunities for people to either flex their hours, to put in more hours today, tomorrow, and when they return, they can take a vacation day. If their position allows, we're also allowing them to work from home. So just some continued shifts there. As we watch this, you know, it's hard to ask people to be out, but wanting to keep an eye on buildings and stuff because you never know what can happen when it's 50 below zero. And the meteorologist that did the briefing today has been in his position at the National Weather Service in Omaha for 25 years and couldn't remember a time that it's going to be this cold. So let's see. I guess the last thing that I'll leave you with today is, as I think about, you know, you heard Mr. Cole say it, it's not just about the intermediate school and the great work happening there or what they're being recognized for great work. There's great work happening everywhere. And, you know, holidays tend to be a time where you reflect and you think about all the things you're grateful for. And I just want to say thank you. I think about all the things that we've accomplished, and if we put those on a list, it would be pretty darn long and something to be, a lot of things to be very proud of. And I just want to say thank you because couldn't do it without all of you sitting here, putting up with some of my ideas, challenging ideas, and I think we're starting to see the benefits of that. And so just thank you for your continued support. And with that, I'll conclude my report and gladly answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Dr. McDowell. With that, we will move on to our action items for tonight. First up is item 8A on the weight room. Mr. Bowling, Mr. Martin, and Ms. Westfall previously presented proposed equipment upgrades for the weight room at Crete High. At this time, I would entertain a motion to approve the high school weight room upgrade project as presented.
So moved.
A motion by Scott. Is there a second? Second by Greg Mock. Dr. McDowell, anything additional on this?
Yes, I'll just say, you know, again, a special thanks to the Crete Booster Club. We wouldn't be able to move this quickly without them. They made a donation of $60,000. We're covering the other part of that with the revenue that we'll continue to receive back from the Booster Club for the video boards in the gym. So that's how we plan to cover that expense.
Thank you, Dr. McDowell. Any other questions, board? Roll call.
Kozaczek? Yes. Kuntz?
Yes.
Lorenz?
Yes.
Mock? Peening?
Yes.
Motion carries. Next up is item 8B, intermediate playground. Mrs. Five previously presented information on adding ADA compliant equipment to the intermediate school playground. I would entertain a motion to approve the intermediate school ADA playground equipment project as presented. Motion by Greg Mock. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Scott. Dr. McDowell, anything new on this?
No, sir.
Any questions, additional discussion, board? You do have the materials in your, as part of your meeting packet. Hearing none, roll call?
Kozaczek? Yes. Kuntz?
Yes.
Lorenz?
Yes.
Mock?
Yes.
Peening?
Yes.
Motion carries. With that, brings us to item 8C, which is the KSO 2021-2022 audit. The board has received and reviewed the 2021-2022 audit. I would entertain a motion to accept the 21-22 audit from KSO as presented. A motion by Julie. Is there a second? Second by Greg Mock. Dr. McDowell, anything in addition to the audit?
Yes, Megan's going to share just a couple items with you. This is, so just so we're clear, the audit is always interesting. You're not approving the audit, and that will be in the motion. You're just accepting it. There's, you know, it's done by a third party. We just have to accept it and get it on file.
Okay, so our audit was completed in September, and they didn't have any additional findings than what they had last year. So we're always going to have the findings that we can't segregate our duties enough because we don't have enough staff to do that. So we segregated them as far as we can. That'll be something we'll continue to see every year unless we can decide we can hire more staff for that. But the other thing I wanted to share, the other finding is that we can't, or in our prior accounting system, we couldn't reconcile all of our bank accounts appropriately. Some of it was being done just on Excel spreadsheets. And with the new system that we have now, we are able to do that. So one of the comments she made in the letter you would see with your audit packet was that overall, they're seeing the district continuing to make positive changes to reduce the number of findings each year. So in my position, that's what I like to hear from them, and that the district is financially stable. So as you review anything, if you have questions, you can stop by and talk to me. She also had her contact information at the bottom if there's anything you want to ask her about.
Thank you for that. Dr. McDowell, one thing that stood out to me, and it's, quite honestly, could be concerning at some point. I know the city of Crete is really using a lot of TIF projects and tax increment financing. I see in the audit where projects that we've lost about $115,000 in property tax revenue due to TIF projects and the discounted tax rates. Have we had any conversations with the city officials about how they're using this more frequently to develop projects around town? Do you think they think of how that impacts the school district, or do we need to have some conversations with them?
No, there certainly needs to be conversations had. I think the TIF financing always puts public school districts in a tough situation because you want to see your community grow and thrive and development happen. But when you TIF finance and you delay property taxes, especially with residential projects that draw people and kids, that certainly puts a pinch on us without a doubt. So I am more than willing to have that conversation with Mayor Bauer and Mr. Areta.
I'd certainly be willing to join you
Okay.
in that. Any other questions on the audit board? Thank you, Megan. Did I ask for a motion on this yet?
So moved.
We have it. Okay. All right. Any other questions or discussion on the audit board? Roll call?
Kozaczek?
Yes.
Kuntz?
Yes.
Lorenz?
Yes.
Mock? Peening?
Yes.
Motion carries. Next up is executive session. Does any board member have a need for executive session? Hearing none, we would move on to item 10, which is old business. Is there any old business to be discussed, Dr. McDowell? All right. We will then move on to item 11, notification of upcoming Board of Education meetings. The next Board of Education meeting will be on Monday, January 9th, 2023 at 6 p.m. at the Cardinal Welcome Center Boardroom. With that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn. I have a motion by Julie, second by Bill. Roll call?
Kozaczek?
Yes.
Kuntz?
Yes.
Lorenz?
Yes.
Mock? Peening?
Yes.
With that, we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone, for coming. Have a great evening.